Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Ohio Train 705 Railfanning video. In late September, me and my dad took a trip down near the Ohio River to catch some trains in Cincinnati and Louisville. Our trip was full of action and included lots of unique spots along the busy rail lines of CSX and Norfolk Southern transportation. So why don't you sit back, relax, and come on down with us. On the drive down to Cincinnati, we would parallel much of the Norfolk Southern Sandusky district. So when we heard a train on the scanner, we would pull up trackside and wait. Our first stop takes us to the small village of Chatfield, Ohio, where we would see Norfolk Southern 11E rolling northbound, doing all of track speed, with the NS barcode unit pulling solo. Since this portion of the line was single-tracked, a monster NS-179 would have to sit in a siding just north of our cameras to wait for the 11E to pass. It wasn't long before he stumbled into view with a nice assortment of power leading the way southbound. We then would chase the 179 down to Bucyrus, where the Sandusky district crosses the Chicago-Fort Wayne and Eastern Railroad. This is also where the Norfolk Southern Fort Wayne line starts its run at. Coincidentally, there was a Wheeling Lake Erie 430 running east light power along the CF&E 30 minutes before we got there. We then moved a little south of Marion along Wolfinger Road, where we would catch Norfolk Southern 171 absolutely hauling southbound with some more interesting power. A sweet P5 horn would be equipped with the Dash 9 leader, followed by a slug set pair, heading down to Dead Butts Yard in Chattanooga, Tennessee. As the sun started to fall, we would hit our main destination of the day, which would be located right across the Ohio River in Cincinnati, Ohio. Right away, we were greeted by NS northbound train 196, crossing the majestic Ohio River in the Death Street Yard to do some work. At about the same time, CSX I-141 pulled out southbound to make headroom for his massive train that was about to work the intermodal ramp in Queensgate Yard. As the anticipation grew, it wasn't long before the next Norfolk Southern train came into view. Emerging gracefully from the bustling Jess Street Yard in Cincinnati, Ohio, was none other than NS Train 177. The train resembled the look of the Wild West, with a Union Pacific Tier 4 ace in the lead and a BNSF GEVO second out. Around 10 minutes later, we would hear rumbling coming up from behind us. We turned our cameras towards NS 51G-17, as required grain empties from Baldwin, Georgia to Millmine, Illinois. This train will pull up for a crew change at Jess Street Yard before continuing on to its final destination. Next to arrive was our second CSX train of the evening, which was CSX M317 with a plethora of different locomotive power. M317 used the bottom tracks, which are the tracks that CSX trains use to get in and out of Queensgate Yard. I-141 and I-140 are the only trains to use the bridge section. Coming out of the yard to meet M317 was local job Y124, coming out of Queensgate to work DeCourcy, Kentucky. A duo of Jeeps lead the train, consisting of scrap metal, chemicals, and other materials for export. Our final train in Cincinnati before we had to move on for Louisville was CSX M541, making its long and lengthy journey from Queensgate Yard here in Cincinnati to Rice Yard in Waycross, Georgia. On the way, it would work Pasco, Kentucky, Corbin, Kentucky, Knoxville, Tennessee, Etowah, Tennessee, Cartersville, Georgia, and Atlanta, Georgia. We wake up the next morning and head for the University of Louisville, where conveniently the CSX LCL sub rolls right through the middle of the campus. We arrive just in time to see CSX M205 creeping southbound just minutes until its final destination of Osborne Yard. It took nearly 9 minutes to fully get by, as it was a big one today. We moved just south to where the NS Louisville line crosses over the CSX LCL sub, right in front of the Louisville football stadium. We immediately noticed a green signal indication for a southbound Norfolk Southern train to cross the Diamonds. And sure enough, 5 minutes later, NS 168 would make its way through Louisville en route to Chattanooga, Tennessee. After doing some things around Louisville, we planned to have dinner at the famous street running town of LaGrange, Kentucky. After 4 hours of waiting and almost losing hope, we were delighted to see a headlight approaching eastbound. It was CSX M276, the newly established Autorack train from Louisville, Kentucky to Jessup, Maryland, making for the first street running train I have ever witnessed in person. The next morning, we started our trek back home, but made a 2-hour stop in a popular railfanning location in Cincinnati called Winton Place. We were greeted almost immediately by Norfolk Southern northbound train 170 climbing the hill out of Jess Street Yard. The AC-44 C6M and the Dash 9 were both smoking up a storm on its way out of Cincinnati. The next train was another NS northbound climbing the hill out of the river valley. It was Hotshot Intermodal 26C, who had just finished its work at the intermodal ramp in Jess Street Yard. Norfolk Southern 26C is hot trailers and containers out of Simpson Yard in Jacksonville, Florida, to Calumet Yard in Chicago, Illinois. Around 20 minutes later, another northbound showed up, but this time it would be a CSX, and frankly our only CSX that we saw today. It was Y124, a local job out of Queensgate Yard, and works customers around St. Bernard, a little north of where we stood. "12:30 p.m. Another NS, but this time a southbound. It was NS 177, which carried a mix of containers and mixed freight, and this time it had all NS power. You may remember a little earlier in the video, we caught the same symbol. And the last train at Winton Place would be a good one. It was northbound Potash train 61P, coming out of Jeffersonville, Indiana, and heading for the Canadian Pacific Railway in Chicago, Illinois. Your typical NS leads, but two fresh, red, candy apple Canadian Pacific ST70 ACUs are trailing, making for a nice surprise. And finally, the last train of the video would be filmed in Spencer, Ohio, where we noticed a Wheeling Lake Erie train's headlight in the distance. We raced over to Chatham Road just in time for Wheeling Lake Erie 222 to roll eastbound with a good-sized train today.